Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Hoops podcast right here on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. I am Christy Winter-Scott, joined this time yet again by Jamie Steyer Johnson. Hey, girl, hey.
Oh, hey, Christy. It's as always been a little while, but good to catch up. And especially, I know you're, as always, all over the place. You're jet setting. So good to have our little interlude here.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, man, on the move, just, trusting that the weather holds true so I can get to where I need to go. So it's been pretty good so far. So keep that on the top of the list of things that need to be working well at the moment. And speaking of things that are working well at the moment, in spite of adverse situations and out of control situations like injuries, South Carolina and Dawn Staley, they have just found a way. What is the way that they have found because of two starters right now being down, Jamie?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, like it's so hard to play down a starter, let alone multiple. For South Carolina, I think that part of their strength has been that they obviously have had different players in the starting lineup. Dawn is not afraid to tinker with that. And so they really found a great rhythm when they moved Agat McKeer into the starting lineup. And so
Right.
it's tough then to have her go out. And then, of course, being kind of up and down with Tanaya Latson is tough, but they've played without her as well. And so it's not anything that's unprecedented. Agat McKeer missed time earlier in the season too, but man, it really just shows the depth that they have, obviously, where even when you only have 9 players available, you still are able to go on the road. You still get things done. I think there's a lot of value to being able to win, even if it's not in the ideal situation, even if it's ugly at times. They pulled away late, but I mean, this was a 5-point game midway through the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And so they just, I mean, they came out and it felt like Dawn just kind of looked at them and was like, is this what we're gonna do? Like, I think that y'all have better. And they very much did. They came out really, really strong to end the game. And
Right.
in those situations where you're adjusting live as you go, to
Right.
me, I always look at the fourth quarter. It's how do you end the game? And they ended the game really, really strong.
They really did. I know when I was a coach, I know Wendell Bird. He was a long time, really great coach here in Reston, Virginia at South Lakes High School. And when I first started being a head coach, the best advice he ever gave me was to coach character, right? I mean, X's and O's and tactical things and sets and pick and rolls and all that, really great. But what supersedes that, Jamie, is the mentality, right?
Mhm.
And I remember going into huddles and just looking and not even having the whiteboard and saying kind of what you just said. Is this how we're going out? Like, is this what we want our legacy to be for this game? Is this what we want, how we want it to end? So I think, when you tap into that, you have to, number one, have the right kind of players to be able to do that, right?
Mhm.
Players who care, players who are invested, players who won't tap out when it gets difficult, right? Because that's really some sucker stuff. Like if you can't dig in, right? You got to be able to
Mhm.
trust that your team will dig in when the times aren't really great in terms of the injuries and things. So I think for Dawn Staley too, number one, recruit the type of kids that you could just look at in a huddle and say, "What are we doing?" And not even
Mhm.
look at the X's and O's of it all, and just tap into here and here. And that's what I think we're seeing right now. And it's not her first rodeo with that either, with having players injured and moving forward and finding success. So I think that just speaks to who she's recruiting and who
Mhm.
she's bringing in to the fold with her program and who she trusts in that way. So I mean, I think there's trust both ways when you can tap in to that level of mentality and say, hey, this is not what we worked on. This is not what we stand on. This is not our foundation, right? Or the character of
Mhm.
our team. The philosophy is to tap into that deep down love that you have for the game and let that manifest itself on the court. And I think that's what we saw, right? In the last few minutes of that game where they just held the rope and found a way. But just kudos to Dawn for that moment, yes, but also last year and the year before that, like getting the recruits in place to be able to coach them in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially if a game where you have an uncharacteristic level of turnovers, where you have 17 turnovers, and you still end up with a 15-point win. You're still efficient from the floor to some degree, and you get to the free throw line a ton. They were super, super aggressive, and so especially just in a game where you need more scoring, especially with Tanaya out, to have Joyce step up in the way that she did, 28 points. She shoots 75% from the floor on 12 attempts and then gets to the free throw line 12 times as well. Like that's just doing it all. She's such a problem to match up with, to guard. And
Yeah.
then in that game, I mean, they needed all of that. They needed someone to step up in that way. And she absolutely was that someone.
Yeah, suffice it to say, I mean, Dawn Staley has a type when it comes to post players, and I like to compare. I mean, people say comparison is the thief of joy, but it's also pretty fun. When you look at the comparisons between Joyce and Asia Wilson, right, and the trajectory, and every year getting better, and just the balance of her game. It just reminds me of Asia so much, and not
Mm,
necessarily everything specifically looking like Asia when she does it. I'm just saying, like, the drive of it all and the effectiveness and impact of it all is very similar to what Asia Wilson brought to the Gamecocks years ago. So I just think that it's really been remarkable to see her continue to grow and evolve as a competitor, and also to be relied upon again, right? Speaking to the philosophy of why Dawn brought her there, right, is to come and make your own mark here at South Carolina. And so she's doing that and more. And not just statistically, I think also, the way that she plays the game. Like
mm.
it's not necessarily like how she's producing these points, but it's the way in which she goes about her craft. I think that is really impressive to watch. And I think if you've been watching her since day one, you've seen this progression, and that's all you want from your players, right? That evolution, that step by step progression, and everyday improvement, right? 1% better every day in every way on every play. So I just think for her, it's got to be maximized moving forward. But hopefully they don't have to grind out so many games like that. But
Yeah.
they may have to. But if they do, they know they can tap in and get it done.
And I mean, a lot of credit to Texas A&M as well for making it a competitive game. I mean, to go out there and compete at the level that they did. I mean, you look at so many different things where, okay, if you foul a little bit less, this is a completely different game. I mean, this was a 15-point
Yeah,
win for South Carolina. They went 20 for 25 at the free throw line. Like that's huge. That's obviously a matchup situation there. But I mean, A&M was able to get offensive rebounds. They were able to really knocked down the threes, nearly 40% from three, something South Carolina tends to shut down really well. So obviously, they did their part to keep this a game. And if
right.
they can play like that against a lot of other teams in the conference, they're going to win a second and third and more SEC game if they can really kind of harness what they were able to do for 35 minutes of that game. They're gonna have a lot more success here to end the season.
Yeah, I love that, and definitely something to keep an eye on. With the injuries, you just never know. When that is going to happen. Unfortunately, is the worst part of any sport, but the bane of my existence because I hate to see people suffering physically with Letson and the such. But I just, I'm really anxious to see what South Carolina looks like as they make a push to March, and if they can get bodies back. What that could look like for them too. But speaking of, being in the thick of conference play and teams that are grinding it out, digging it out, North Carolina and NC State in the ACC. Can we just dissect what is happening with those two teams right now, Jamie? Because there's a lot going on in the ACC right now as well, especially with the two of those teams.
Yeah, I mean, the ACC is a difficult conference, I think, to really figure out. Like, you can't quite get the pulse there because they struggled as a conference a lot in the non con, but they have so many teams are really capable. And a lot of them are starting to separate themselves within conference play. People
Right.
were down on Duke. They had a really tough strength of schedule. Now people are coming back around, and Duke has obviously helped themselves by shoring up some of the issues that they had in non con. And then two more teams that I think people didn't quite know what to do with for different reasons. North Carolina, because they didn't face a tremendous level of competition in their non-conference, and NC State, because they did face a lot of stiff competition in their non-conference. It seems like they learned from it, and now they've been playing pretty well in conference
Right.
play. So obviously the play for cake game, the OG there in NC State and North Carolina. Like,
Yeah.
love to see that. Debbie Antonelli did such a great job hosting their halftime reception. Like, obviously, love that they put that on TV so you can see the whole thing through. Just a really special event. And then you get great basketball on top of it. So, it couldn't have been a heck of a lot more exciting. I mean, when it comes down literally to the wire, that is a tough place to play, a tough place to win. That third quarter for North Carolina did the heavy lifting. You outscore NC State 18-8 in a game that ends up being a 2-point victory. That was just super impressive. They needed that quad one win. They got it. And it's as I said with, the other game with Texas A&M earlier, but even in a loss, there's so much that you can build on there. And I think more than anything, it's the confidence to go into a really tough road environment, get your first quad one win, and know, all right, this is who we are. This is what we can build on.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, just another log on the fire, for North Carolina as they're, just trying to build some momentum. Obviously, in the ACC, not an easy thing or not an easy task to approach, but you have to be able to, tap into something like we've already done that, right? So now you can build upon it. But I think for NC State, what lessons do you think they learned from the game? I mean, we know that it's a log on the fire for North Carolina and the Tar Heels, but on the other side of things, what is the assessment of what NC State can learn from this? They can still build from it, but what do you think they learned from this game?
I don't know that there's anything that hasn't been seen before, but it just re-emphasizes some important things for them. Number one being their depth it's just been a struggle, and their starters were pretty solid, but you have two players coming in off the bench for 18 minutes and 6 minutes. And so, I mean, you've got Zam Jones having to play 40. The fewest minutes in the starting five
Right.
is Caden Samuels with 28. Like, and then you lose late. And that is just kind of the way that those things tend to go. And
Right.
so, I mean, you have to go with what's working.
Right.
But man, at a certain point, if you can sneak in a couple more minutes of rest for some of your starters, that's huge. But if you can't, then that means you need to be able to score slightly easier buckets. You need to be able to maybe score when the clock is stopped. And so when you shoot
Mhm.
2 free throws
Right.
and you're not bringing in players off the bench,
Mhm.
you're not going to have a very good win condition. And
Right.
so there just has to be some, I think, some maybe tough conversations or just tough evaluations of how can we get a little more creative? How can we change things up, and be able to find better shots? Because obviously they've got good defense. They're very capable in that way, but they just need to put themselves in better situations more often. And that's like the most reductive thing ever.
Mhm.
But if I were to put highlight one thing, it's that you got to be able to get yourself to the free throw line. If you're going to run your starters into the ground, then you need to be able to stop the clock. You need to be able to score those free throws.
Yeah, no question about it. You have to hunt matchups. You got to hunt the paint, right, and get those high percentage shots and really get some force at the rim. And I
Mhm.
think that's something maybe they could glean from that experience in the game against Carolina is maybe to try to attack a little bit more to get themselves to the line, but also defensively. To your point, instead of having to grind it out in the quarter court, try to hunt those matchups that you want or cross matches created with your screening actions. Like, can you get some live ball stops, right? And
Mhm.
that's tougher to do when you're fatigued. And I don't care what athlete or what sport you play, No one ever admits when they're tired. I know I didn't, and I was gassed, and I know I was gassed, but I never gave in to the feeling of being fatigued. There was
Mhm.
just always this extra level of like drive. So to your point of, running them in the ground, I don't know if they ever feel like they're actually being run into the ground because, and maybe it is true and it showed right down the stretch when they didn't have their legs when they needed them. But at the same time, I mean, do you think there's something to that? Like, I'm playing. Like that's just the bottom line. I don't care.
Mhm.
I mean, 40 minutes if you want to, but and I'll be tired and I'm good. But guess what? I'm gonna pour everything out. I don't know. There's not like a hard and fast like minutes restriction on where players tap out. I don't know.
Right.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe things have changed, but man, I wasn't coming out until you took me off the floor. I'm not. I never raised my hand to come off the floor, and I know
Right.
I was
And
tired.
that's
In fact, I know I was tired.
exactly. And that's the thing is that's where, like, I've said this about players trying to force themselves to play through injury before, where it's like someone has to be the adult in the room at some point, and you have to be able to look back at the film and say, okay, is everyone out there
Right.
playing at their peak? And the
Right.
answer is going to be no. Like, if you have played 40 minutes in almost any case, and I say almost because there's obviously the fringe cases where people are just able to do that, but
Yeah.
usually no. And I look there at other, kind of those stats where you get 12 offensive rebounds
Right.
and you don't capitalize off that at a high clip. You have 16 more shots
Yeah.
than North Carolina and you only make 3 more. Like, that to
Good
me,
point.
the best case scenario is that is fatigue.
Yeah.
Because if it's not fatigue, that's worse.
Yeah.
That's harder to fix. And so if you can get yourself just a little bit more of a break. I mean, I talk about this with teams playing at elevation. Iowa State, I'm heading to Utah next week, and
Right.
that's going to be a really big factor is
Yeah.
they're going to have to change their rotations because playing at elevation is tough. And just in general, it's about, okay, who can we rotate in and out? How can we sneak an extra 30 seconds? Do the classic, you sub someone out right before immediate timeout. And
Absolutely.
so they're out for 15 seconds of game time, but they're sitting down for 2 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah. Get a little rest. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. You're not the only one headed to Utah. I just saw the big trade in the NBA with Jaren Jackson Jr. going from Memphis to Utah, but I digress. I just saw that pop up. But anyway, but with that being said, yeah, there has to be some wisdom and some, I guess, some honesty there. But it's so tough when you're competitive, and I
Mhm.
mean, as a coach too, you want to win, so you want Rudolph driving that thing,
And
man.
maybe truly is their best opportunity. Like, maybe their bench just is not quite there and they do have to play their starters that much, but then you just have to approach things a little bit differently. You still have to get yourself to the line, all that.
Yeah, no, for sure, I get it. No, it's a tough quandary, right? Because you want to win, but then to what extent do you want to push your kids? So I get that too, and the kids pushing themselves too. It's not the
Mhm.
coach like saying go go go, but the kids are saying, "Come on, I've been working so hard for this.
Right.
Let me push this extra 5 minutes." So yeah, I get it. No, full on from all angles, and it's not an easy thing to figure out. But hopefully they glean something from it moving forward in the ACC. Let's take it to what you were just talking about. You're headed to Utah, and the state of Iowa and Iowa State, the state of their women's basketball programs. Let's tap into that
Mhm.
for a moment. And you're going to Utah, so we'll talk about that too a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, finally bye week, so that's I know for the team that's always nice. For me personally, it's great because we're in week 3 of the semester, and I'm like telling my students, "All right, I promise, I'm like getting our calendar updated. We're doing all that fun stuff." But
Right, right.
um, it'll certainly be exciting. But just a couple of points that I wanted to hit here. I try to keep like my personal stuff. Obviously, I'll get into some of the Iowa State team stuff because this is a national podcast. But I wanted to really quickly just
Yeah,
shout out Coach Fenley, just became the all-time winningest coach in the Big 12. And
he's the goat.
first of all, it shows the awareness and like the ball knowing of our fans because they play this video before the game, which he later was joking about it. He's like, "Yeah, I told our director of ops, like, you better not do anything for me. I'm going to fire you." And he's like, "Well, then you're going to have to find someone else because like we're doing something." So it was also the day they were honoring Jada Williams for her 1,000th point
Oh yeah,
and Audie Crooks for her 2,000th point.
I love
So it was a heck of a day. But
love it.
in the video, it was almost every coach in the Big 12. And then to cap it off, they got Sherry Cole and Kim Mulkey both to send in videos. So touching, like had me emotional. You look over and Coach Fenley's a little emotional, which he hates being in the spotlight, but really, really touching stuff from those two. So just a really, really cool moment there. And then elsewhere in the state over the weekend, back to more of the on-court stuff.
Yeah.
I have to give them a shout out. Riley Goebel for UNI in the rivalry matchup with Drake. 6 foot, triple double, 10 blocks.
Let's go.
Unbelievable. She flies so under the radar. She has put together like season long stat lines that are rivaled only by like Sarah Strong and the likes there with her scoring, her efficiency, her rebounding.
Right.
She does all the little things. I obviously cover the Valley some, but that is only the second 10 block game this season in all of NCAA D1 women's basketball. And so I just saw that, like I saw that UNI won. I said, wow, that's a good win for them. I look in the box score and I'm like, oh my God, this is incredible. So I just thought that was really, really cool to see as well. So those are my two kind of digression points. But as far as like the basketball in the state of Iowa goes, I think that a lot of people either get really high or really low on teams like Iowa where they have a big following. Right. And I think that what people need to remember is these road trips are tough. Like I'm not saying that, they have it so hard because they have to fly. Like I get that their flying conditions are good. I get that they're well taken care of, but going out to the coast, going up against two really solid teams, right after you've lost one of your starters, I'm going to continue to kind of hammer this point home. I think people undersell the importance of having consistency in your team roles and your starting lineup. And so it's going to take them a little bit of time to figure that out. And I know BMAC was saying before we started recording that he had talked about Addie Deal and how he thought that she would be really well prepared to step into that role. And now people are saying, well, what do you know? Like, well, then look what she does. She's a freshman just stepping into that role. This does not prove anything of what her ability is, what she will do this season, what she is capable of.
No question.
That's a tough spot to be in. And so I'm really interested to see what their next couple games look like, because now they've gone up against very tough competition. They're going to have to do, some of that introspection of, all right, we haven't lost for a long time. Mm-hmm. Now we've lost a couple. What next? But I mean, if I've seen anything from especially the Jan Jansen era at Iowa, it's that they will respond. And so that's what I'm looking at is their next game. What are they doing? What have they changed? Because they will have changed things. They will be coming at it with a really big sense of effort. And so that's what I think is going to be really key.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, when you lose a player like Taylor McCabe, I mean, not only was she a floor spacer because of her 3-point shooting prowess and striking ability from outside, but she had experience, right? Mm-hmm. And to your point with Deal, I mean, being a young player, it's not an excuse, it's reality. So we're not excuses out here like, oh, but this, that, and, playing the violin about. This is a reality situation here. You're losing a stalwart in terms of having experience on the floor in moments like that, on the road, in conference play, on the West Coast, right? And then you take that out of the mix and you throw in a player who has no experience with that. This is the first rodeo with that. It is her first rodeo. It doesn't mean that she's not capable. It just means that it's new. And that's what I think. I mean, that's a metaphor in life that I'm going through right now. Right? It's a new thing, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. It means that you should be excited about what's ahead of you, right? So for Deal, she needs to tap into that and understand that, okay, it may be frustrating right there, those losses, but at the same time, it's not all on her, right? It's about the team. It's not all about what she did or didn't do in the game. It's about what the team needs to continue to restructure, if you will. So now it's a rebuilding. mid-season in the thick of Big Ten conference play. Not easy by any stretch, but if it was easy, you wouldn't want to do it anyway. So it's a
Mhm.
challenge. And this is what Iowa has done well over the years. They've met challenges full on, staring them in the face, and they've conquered and they've won. So I am not worried about Iowa in that way. I think obviously they need more reps to develop the newfound chemistry that they must utilize and tap into to win and survive, and not just win games, but to play the way they want to play. So,
Mhm.
win or lose, they want to play the style of basketball that they know they can do. And that's moving the basketball well, that's defending, that's pushing the tempo. So, all of those things, can you get back to that? Can you get back to the style and philosophy of Iowa women's basketball? And when you do that, wins will come along. And it may not come along quickly, but eventually. And I think that is what Iowa needs to hold on to and understand the reality of the situation. While it may be frustrating right now, it's not always going to be. Then there's going to be a better day ahead if they continue to chop. And that's what they'll do.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Yeah. And with that, speaking of continuing to chop, Lord have mercy. All the CBA conversations still going on about the WNBA, and some news popped, not really any momentum or emotion, but there has been, a couple of comments that were made. They had some meetings recently. Saw Nafisa Collier being pushed because she's injured right now, being pushed in the airport with Kelsey Plum, which I thought was an absolute riot. But they're still trying to move forward, like Kelsey and Nafisa in the airport. What's your latest take on the CBA talks in the W?
Uh, I think it is deeply unserious to show up to a meeting with no response to the Players Association's last proposal. It's been 6 weeks. You finally get a meeting, and your response is that you will start to craft one. I think that the argument of, well, it wasn't meaningfully different enough to warrant a response is, again, just it's saying nothing. If you actually want to come to an agreement, then you have to point to, all right, these are the points that have not moved enough for us. Like, you have to have a dialogue in order to be able to move forward. And right now it feels like the league is just sitting there and saying, well, we don't really like what you have to say, but they're not contributing anything of their own. And
Right.
so for the side that I don't think is in the favorable bargaining position, for
Mhm.
the fact that, I mean, every single player that plays in another league outside of the WNBA
Right.
makes more money there. I mean, I'll say probably close to every single player. I don't have the numbers in front of me, so I'll, put the qualifier on there. But
Every,
based on what I know of the financial structures of leagues outside of the United States, I think it's pretty safe to say that. And so
yeah.
players want to play in the United States.
Mhm.
That is not generally their primary source of income, and they are not trying to make it their only source of income.
Right.
But the league, without a season this year, the league is in a spot where it's not, oh, we're trying to gain ground. It's, you are desperately trying to stay afloat, because how do you have two new teams coming in this year, two more already scheduled, and you're potentially okay with a work stoppage? I just don't think it's possible to
Right.
do that and to have any kind of, not just any kind of momentum going forward, but to have significant confidence that the league can stay afloat. You have teams
Right.
that are already bankrolling their operations right now and have not been given a guarantee that they have a season. And so, I mean, at some point, I said before, I talk about someone being the adult in the room. Like, someone has to be the adult in the room. And
Right.
if the league isn't going to step up and do that, then people just need to recognize that this is on them. Like, it's not that they're giving counter proposals and the players are just being completely unreasonable. They're refusing to even counter. And so you can't move forward if you don't get a response.
Right.
And at this point, I mean, it's very nearly too late. Like, if you don't have an agreement in not months, weeks,
Right.
there will not be enough time to get a double team expansion draft, to get free agency for 90% of the league.
90%, man.
And then your regular draft.
90%, Jamie. That's such a solid point because we can ill afford, and I'm speaking as a fan right now.
Yeah.
We can ill afford a work stoppage in the WNBA. I am just prayerful that this will get some motion and momentum moving forward for all involved, right? I know they want
Mm-hmm.
to hoop. I know the players want to hoop. I know, the WNBA doesn't want to lose the momentum for professional women's sports, and they don't want to be made the example of, right? In that
Mm-hmm.
way that they couldn't leverage and have a conversation to get things moving forward. Um, I just think it would be such a pity. And
Yeah.
I just don't even like saying it out loud because I just don't want it to happen.
Yeah.
But I just think that there is always hope. That's something that my dad always taught me. There's always hope, right? And you have to kind of hang your head on hope, and hopefully the growing league will understand that this is such a linchpin to the success of the league moving forward for decades, right? This is where it can't stop. The buck can't stop here. Like, we got to keep moving, and hopefully they can figure it out sooner than later. Like, as you said, weeks, not months, like weeks. Got to get it going. Got to go.
Mhm.
I'm not a patient person, so I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go.
Yeah.
My kids are in
Fingers crossed
your shoes,
at all times. Yeah.
get in the car. Like, this is, we got to go. That's what moms do. We get things moving. So let's go with it, and hoping for the best there. And we're just gonna not put any negative things out in the atmosphere.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's gonna work. It's gonna work. It's gonna be fine. It's fine. It's fine. So we'll see what happens there. Oh gosh. Well, anyway, I know you are on the move, traveling out to Utah. So safe travels to you. Anything else coming up for you personally you want to tap into or share?
Mostly just here, her Hoop Stats podcast, and then of course always my broadcast with Iowa State. You can find those online from Iowa State. We go online. The streaming world is vast, and it includes radio, so you could always tap in there. But yeah, most of my work coming out here is going to be through her Hoop Stats. Unless you want to read research papers, then I might have a couple of those to drop in a couple months. But in the immediate future, yeah, we'll mostly be localized here.
Yeah, that's a whole no on those essay papers. You got that? Hey, I'm good on that. But you're a star. You're a rock star in your role. And you're a fabulous professor, and get the job done in so many different ways, especially right here on the Her Hoop Stats podcast. So I always love talking to you. Your perspective is always fresh and concise, and I appreciate you. And I love having this banter and this time to chop it up with you.
Yes, always love getting to catch up with you as well.
Oh, it's all love. And BMAC, the producer extraordinaire, thank you, my friend, for getting us on here yet again, getting things organized, structured, and scheduled across the board. I know that's not easy with the Ferris wheel of the stable of broadcasters and analysts that we have on here. So we certainly appreciate you, BMAC, for everything. And oh my gosh, I know there's so much more ahead of us. I can't even wait for next week because I know we're going to have so much more to talk about with conference play at a tipping point and right in the thick of all of that mud work that needs to be done. I'm anxious to see what that's going to look like across the board, across the country. And speaking across the country, safe travels to you, my friend. And this is going to do it for us. We don't have to go home. But we do have to get up out of here because BMAC has things to do, places to go, people to see. But until next time, I am Christy Winter Scott for Jamie Steyer Johnson. We'll see you next time right here on the Her Hoop Stats Podcast Network. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.